Hello and welcome back to the Spotlight Games Podcast, episode 102. This week we have a PlayStation Portal review, Sony's newest remote play device for the PS5, as well as a review for a Game of the Year nominee, Alan Wake 2. Plus, we got some news for both The Last of Us Part 2, the game, and HBO's The Last of Us to discuss. And finally, we're going to be discussing some of our and our audience's most beloved licensed games from our childhood. I'm your host, Patrick, and joining me, as always, my sweet dumpster boy. Cayman, how we doing?
Patrick, I'm doing great.
Hell yeah.
It's Turkey Week, Patrick.
Gobble, gobble, motherfucker.
This episode is going to release on Turkey Day.
It is. Wow, that's a good point. Do you think I should release it on Wednesday? Because I'm going to be editing it tonight because I leave tomorrow morning.
That's a great question. Maybe. I mean, we can listen while we drive. Most people are driving.
True. That's a good point. Yeah. So maybe this will be a
pre-Thanksgiving. How the sausage is made.
How the sausage is made. Cayman, what a week it's been. Last week we got back to the show proper.
Yes, we did.
Covering, games we've been playing, the Game Awards nominees, and we're in this second episode post the top 100 world. And I'm just thrilled to be talking about a lot of video games, things we've been playing, and news, because we do have a lot of video game stuff to talk about, because this is the Spotlight Games Podcast, where each week we spotlight the latest and the greatest in the world of video games. You can get it by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Spotlight Games Pod, or by searching for Spotlight Games in your favorite podcast app. And hey, you can be on the show by tuning in as we record live Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod. So be sure to follow us there so that you're notified when we go live, so you can be part of the conversation. We got Liz McLean in the chat, brothers, with the McLean Loots.
Brother.
Liz, how we doing? Cayman, there's so much to discuss. As we said, we're talking about PlayStation Portal. We're talking about Alan Wake 2. We're talking about a lot of things. What do you say should we just dive right in, doggy dog?
Dude, I think we should just dive right in, doggy dog.
So I want to start by talking about the PlayStation Portal.
Okay.
This is something that, was announced earlier this year. We've been very excited about. It's, for those of you that don't know at home, the PlayStation Portal is essentially a remote play device. It's like a Switch, but it just plays your PlayStation on its own little screen while your PlayStation is running in your own kind of in your cabinet or whatever. So it's all it does. You don't play it on the road. You have to be connected to Wi-Fi, remote playing it. But it's something that we've been very excited for on this podcast, because we're a couple PlayStation boys. We play most of the games that we play on PlayStation, and we have been so patiently awaiting. And Cayman, you got one.
I did.
You've been playing it for the last week. We have a couple questions from our audience. I want to start first with John, aka Rabbit128, who asks the question: how does it feel playing the PlayStation Vita 2, Cayman?
So I think that's a great question. I think it's really important to kind of specify the fact that this is not a Vita 2.
Yes.
This is not a Vita 2. And I think that that's a really good thing. And I think that that's also a really bad thing. It really depends on how you look at it, right? Like Patrick said, this is not something that you can just take on the road. You can go out in the middle of the woods and you can just play. You have to have Wi-Fi. So with that being said, I think obviously that's not the Vita. The Vita was cartridge based. You would put in your games and you would play them hard. You didn't have to be linked up to anything. Now, what I think is the positive here compared to the Vita situation is that developers aren't going to have to develop games specifically for this. And I think this is like one of the big things that a lot of people might be missing, is that if you had something like the Nintendo Switch, like it has to be able to run these games, because this is all cloud streaming. You don't have to. It doesn't have anything. I've got it in hand. This is what this bad boy looks like.
Oh, it's so pretty.
It is thin. It is so thin. Like, I don't know if you can really see how thin.
Oh, wow.
This
Yeah.
is. This thing weighs maybe a little bit heavier than the Switch. Honestly, don't even think you can tell. Like, I had both in hand and I couldn't tell which one was heavier.
Because the Switch is light for sure.
Yeah. So that'll tell you the weight of it is in the handles. And because, as you can tell, it is a split, it is a dual shock It is a DualSense controller that has been, you can see my little light that's not doing a great job.
See those little fingerprints too.
Yeah, the little grubby hands I've got.
Those little grubby grabbers.
It's got a touch screen as well, which I think is really cool. It's not something anyone really ever talked about, but it does. So the thing is with it though, that I think is really interesting is that the weight of it is in the hands, but it feels incredible to hold. My issue with the Switch is the way that the Joy-Cons are. The Joy-Cons aren't very comfortable. So a lot of times, like, I invested in those, like, the grips that slide on the Joy-Con, but even that's still not really helpful. This feels like you're playing a PlayStation 5 game in handheld. And it is. Like, you're playing PlayStation 5 games handheld. So the grips, when you're holding it like this, it feels great. It has all the DualSense functionality too. And so you've got the haptic feedback, you've got the hairpin trigger. It is incredible to hold on and feel.
Does it do the little, like, well, actually, no, that's a stupid question because it does do the little speaker thing, but I mean, the screen has speakers where like sometimes the game, like it'll be like a radio talking.
That is actually, yeah. So like one thing I will say is very interesting about it is I feel like it's very loud. Like the speakers are, and I feel like
audio, you think?
Oh, it's amazing. The audio quality is fantastic. Obviously, you might have some hiccups depending on latency. So like if your Wi-Fi, and from time to time, it'll be like if like we had a storm here at the house today.
Yeah.
So Wi-Fi was a little wonky. So I had a few moments where my Wi-Fi started to drop when I was playing in the basement, which is like the farthest away from my like central Wi-Fi hub. However, it was just there's a little pixelation and a little laggy, but like outside of that, like not bad. That's the only time I've ever seen it. What I will say is that the speakers are like the lowest setting is still like loud. Like
interesting.
It's like that, which is cool. Here's the thing. I think the other thing is that people have been talking a lot. I want to get the elephant out of the room about the Bluetooth.
Yeah.
One, I feel like it is a missed opportunity from Sony. I do feel like this was a way for them to sell more expensive headphones, and I think that sucks. What I will say is that when I play my Switch, I don't use wireless. I always use wired headphones.
Sure. So it doesn't feel like it's like changing the way you play your mobile games.
No, not in the slightest. I prefer the wired headphones, and the way that this works, unlike the Switch, is the port is under here.
Interesting. So it's not on the screen.
Same with the plug-in. They're both here, right? So it's not on top. So it's not like it goes down. It comes underneath, and it feels way more comfortable than the Switch if you're using wired headphones, which
cool.
And getting a very nice pair of wired headphones now is like $20. So now, with that being said, yes, if you just specifically are like, I have to have wireless, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get your hands on those until like next February.
Couple more questions.
Yes.
One from our audience, one from me. The question from me, because I'm a selfish little boy who's so naughty, but I'll bring the audience in a second. Have you tried, I didn't think to ask you this to test this, but maybe you have. Have you tried playing it on Wi-Fi? Like I know because your PlayStation 5 is hardwired in. Have you tried unplugging it just to see like what it feels like on Wi-Fi?
My PlayStation is on Wi-Fi. It is not hardwired in.
Oh, even better. So all of these, the latency, or rather the lack of latency that you've been experiencing outside of the storm was just, or you've been on Wi-Fi this whole time. Wow, yes. That's really impressive.
It is absolutely incredible. And I have mesh hubs, so I have multiple like Wi-Fi boosters around. So like I have and I have good Wi-Fi too. I'm going to try this week. We'll be taking a trip up to Ohio, staying in a hotel for a few days. I'm going to try there, have more idea of what it's like for on the go, right?
Yeah.
However, with that being said, this is designed for what I'm doing right now, which is kicked back on the couch. Wife's got Gilmore Girls on the TV. She's playing My Time at Sandrock. I'm sitting next to her on the couch. I'm playing all sorts of games. Now, I do want to go over the list of games I played because I think that this is also important, is to know what I tried out, because it would be doing a disservice to say like, oh, I did XYZ. And it's like, oh, well, those games are all tiny, or like, you're playing fucking stuff, right? Okay. So I tried Sea of Stars.
Okay.
fantastic.
Which give just like the single sentence pitch for what these games are in case people don't know the game.
Sea of Stars is going to be a 32-bit Western version of a JRPG. It looks beautiful, but it's like just a really nice 32-bit. So it's like your bare minimum hardware run, right? So we started there. Looks great, plays great. I will say that is one of the games that there's one of the mechanics of it is that you have to have like reflex action. So you have to like hit timing. Perfect. No issues.
Oh, wow.
Whatsoever.
No issues with it.
No issues whatsoever. It was great. Next game I played was upped on the scale, Dragon Quest 11, which is what I've just been like hardcore into the last week. 45 hours in now. I'm just devouring this game. Obviously this JRPG, but it's better looking, looks like an anime. Still not a huge hardware push, but still something that's bigger, I think, in terms of scale compared to Sea of Stars. Looks great, plays great. That is the only one. That's the only game I've played so far that I've had like weird moments of like, it feels like it kind of looks a little weird sometimes where like it looks compressed in an interesting way. But I think it's not the hardware. I think it's just that this game is old and it was released on the PlayStation 4 like several years ago. So like I think that's more of this situation for this game. Next up, I played Rocket League. Played a handful of matches of Rocket League.
Yeah.
Yes. Had zero issues. My ping the entire time was in the low 30s. Wow. I had better ping than any other person on the team and won 2 matches out of 3. And played relatively decent. Got MVP one time.
There you go.
So Rocket League, and so that's Rocket League. Obviously, if you don't know, that is a multiplayer, car-based, fast-paced. Everything runs crazy fast on that. Very interesting, but played great. Next up was, I think, one of the big tests to see like how much power does it have.
Yeah,
and that was Horizon Forbidden West. Here's the thing: looks fucking beautiful.
Okay,
but the limitations is the screen.
Okay,
and that is where you'll start to see, because it is cloud streaming in, you're just going to, it's like if you were to play this on like a lower grade TV, you know, you're not getting 4K on this. I'm sorry.
So are you seeing like texture pop in, or is it just like, it's just not crystal clear?
It's just not crystal clear. It's that feeling of compression where it's like,
got it.
You're just not running this on a Samsung Crystal UHD TV.
Sure.
You're not going to get that. But you're also not going to get that on the Switch or the Steam Deck either.
Sure.
Like, they're both going to have those same issues because they can't, the screen quality for this will not be able to produce that level of quality. It just can't happen yet.
Sure.
So and then the last game that I played, that I think this was the most important one, Baldur's Gate 3. And this is where a revelation happened, Patrick.
Yes.
I realized I think this is actually the perfect way to play Baldur's Gate 3.
Wow.
Because
go ahead.
It's so incredible, because I feel like the zooming in and out during combat feels way better when the screen is like this far from your face. Like it's like, 12 inches from you.
Yeah.
Reading the text feels really good because it's right there. Being able to read your menus, going through the menus, all of that stuff, figuring out your spells and everything. Because on the TV, this text is so small. For some reason on the portal, it's not. Like, it feels
that much closer to you.
Yeah, it feels way more comfortable. And being able to zoom out and kind of gather the map and then zoom back in when you're doing action actually feels like way cooler than it did on the TV. And I could see myself beating Baldur's Gate 3 just exclusively on the portal.
Cool.
Because it's
honestly, that makes me want to get it more than anything else I've heard.
Yeah. So it's really cool. I'll turn it on real quick and kind of show you how it works. So you got your top buttons up here, volume, and volume's over here. Power is here. So power on, it'll come up like this. And it's probably like a bad look on it.
Let's do this. Let's go.
Yeah. Here we go. It might be a little bit better. Yes. Okay. So up here you have, let me see, right here is you're going to be your button. So it'll start connecting, right? And you'll start connecting. Now, I actually have the brightness turned down like considerably.
Oh, wow.
Like almost
to pretty bright.
To the lowest. Yeah, it is incredibly bright. It's incredibly clear. If you, let me see, hit the X button, it is ready to play. And here we go. I've been playing Dragon's Quest.
So just
11.
it
It
pops you
just
right in.
right in. It's really cool to like do the circle and like zoom in.
Yeah.
It's like a really interesting thing. Yeah, I think it's here's the thing that I'll say about it. And like when you drop out, like it takes you to the home screen. You have your
It
home
just looks like your
screen,
PS5. Yeah.
just like your PS5. It looks you can go through, pull all of your games up, play them like that. There's no lag involved of like switching between games or any of that. It's just a really interesting. Now, I will say, I do want to say one last thing about this because I think it's important is when you look at the size difference.
Yeah.
Um, this is my phone, which is the biggest iPhone you can get compared to this.
So a lot bigger. Because
Significantly.
the
So
the portal I think is what, 8 inches? Is that right? Do you know?
I believe so. Yeah. So it's I think it's 8 inches, and I mean compared to so imagine you got your phone right, and then you put your your little your hand things. This is how big it is when you do your like the backbone.
Yeah.
So when you put it on this though, and you're using the larger one, it is significant in size in comparison. It's
Yeah.
huge. The screen feels huge compared to. And
Cool.
don't get me wrong, like I've had very little time with the backbone. I've messed around a little bit with it. I never went out and bought it because I didn't
Yeah.
really see there being much of a need for me. This, I think, was the perfect opportunity for me to skip the backbone entirely,
Cool.
pay the extra $100
Yeah.
because I could see trying to drop down to a smaller screen like your cell phone. And I have, like I said, I have the largest iPhone. Not everyone's even got this big of a phone.
Yeah.
I don't think that you're going to be able to have that much. And also the haptic feedback, all of that, and just the way that this is designed specific. If you're going to do cloud play for your PlayStation, I genuinely 100% stand by. This should be the only way you do it.
Wow.
Glowing, absolutely glowing review of this thing. It has been can't even turn it on. Like I just am always playing it. I'm gonna go take a shit and I'm just playing. I'm just playing a Portal, taking a dump, and I'm just sitting there playing ball. I've got fucking Asterion. Me and Asterion are having
Yeah.
cracking jokes in Baldur's Gate 3 while I'm taking a deuce. It's like this is life, man. This is fucking heaven.
Sure.
So
So a couple more questions. So you've
yes.
already covered one of them. Mondo, friend of the show, had asked like, how does it feel compared to like a Switch, a Steam Deck, a back one? You kind of already touched on all those.
Yeah.
Friend of the show, Cognitive Clips, Jordan in the chat right now.
Mm.
Good evening, Jordan. Also, new friend of the show, Megantron, in the chat. I don't know if you're still here, but hi, Megan. Thanks for being here. Jordan asked, sending it in prior. Well, let's start with the one in the chat first. What was your impression of the image compression? Jordan, correct me if I'm misinterpreting your question, but I'm interpreting that as like, did it negatively impact your experience, or was it just something you noticed and you moved on? Like, but Jordan, let me know if I'm misinterpreting your question there. But what would you say to that about the compression that you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, like if you're playing, like I think Horizon Forbidden West is the perfect example of this. Is when I'm playing and I decided I got on my pterodactyl and I flew off into the sunset, did like a 15-minute trip from point A to point B across the whole map. The compression, certain things I noticed were like the sky had like you could tell the clouds looked a little off. They didn't look natural. I zoomed in on Aloy's face. I couldn't see her peach fuzz, right?
Sure.
Little things like that. It in no way, shape, or form impacted my enjoyment of the game in the slightest, or what I played of it. And it felt really, really good doing combat, like zooming in, using my sharpshooter bow, doing all that, like the quick nature of it felt great. So yeah, I don't think the compression was an issue. I would say, like, the truth is, I think for some of these bigger titles, things like Horizon or Spider-Man or whatnot, like you're probably gonna want to play those on your TV. That's just gonna be the best place to play those games.
Yeah.
But I think this is a perfect thing for like, oh wait, I can't play this on my TV right now because someone is taking up or I'm on the go, whatever. I don't have my PlayStation 5 with me. I don't think you're gonna be like it'll ruin your enjoyment of the game at all because you're not. But I do think that this game is perfect for things like trophy cleanup, for indie games, for JRPGs, maybe things that aren't as taxing or things that aren't as like, you need to see this on a 85-inch flat screen in 4K ultra whatever, right?
Yeah,
Like there's games designed like that. They're supposed to shock and awe you with
for
the
sure.
graphical fidelity. And I think obviously that's the best place to play them. This is, I think, better, smaller
Yeah.
experiences, but like you could do both.
You're not going to want to play Alan Wake 2 on the Portal.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
But
for
I
sure.
think if you were to go back and do like, I have already beat the game. I just
Like
need to
a
go clean
second
up some.
run, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why not? Because I think it still looks fucking amazing. And
Yeah.
that's the other thing too. Like this screen, it holds up to the Switch OLED, and it is not
Yeah.
an OLED. That's how shocked I was when I like booted up, and I was like, "There's no way this is not an OLED." Like they
That's
are
awesome.
pushing the hardware to its limits, and it's
That's great.
incredible. Yeah.
And then final question,
Yeah.
actually two questions. A question from me. Have you noticed, I heard specifically with Alan Wake 2, but it might be an Alan Wake 2 specific thing.
Mhm.
Some people having an issue where the touch screen, because in the game, the touch pad in Alan Wake 2, like the right side of it pulls up one thing, the left side of it pulls up another, and that like doesn't work yet on the Portal.
Interesting.
Is the screen itself the touch pad button of the DualSense?
Yeah. So when you pull it up on both sides, when you touch, you double tap the screen and it pulls up like the touchpad, and it'll give you two boxes. If you hit
Gotcha.
the side of the box, it'll then do like whatever the action would be for that side.
Cool.
So like it's a little touchpad thing where you hit it on, like if it is like, well, if I click on this side of the touchpad, it'll bring up whatever. Then like you hit that on the left
Gotcha.
side, or you hit the box on the right side. And I fucked around with it a little bit because it was confusing at first to me, and then I figured it out and was like, oh, this makes way more sense.
Cool. And then to close out this review, but then I want to get your score as well. Jordan also asks, to borrow a question from Missy Elliott, is it worth it? Let me work it. I put that there is a character limit, so he didn't get to finish the lyric. But do you think this is worth it for our audience?
Yeah, I definitely think that this is a luxury buy. And for me, this was obviously, the running joke was, is that people were donating, and people did. And I'm very thankful for our audience for helping me offset the cost of it. Because truthfully, I didn't have the $200 to spend.
Sure.
You guys put a dent in that number, and I was able to get it to give you this. Yes, if you have $200 to spend and you are exclusively looking to play shit in bed or on the toilet or you just want a cloud stream and you don't want to use the backbone anymore, yes,
Yeah.
1000% yes, buy this thing as soon as you can. And the last question, which is my score, I'm gonna go and give this a 4.5 out of 5.
Okay.
Golden shovels.
Yes.
The half stars, I still think there's going to be people who are upset that there's no Bluetooth capabilities, and I get you, I hear you. I'm not that person. That's why I am giving it a 4.5. So I'm taking a half star off for those people. There could be a world in which in a year, 2 years, they just say, fuck it, here's a Bluetooth version of it.
Yeah.
And then this is just the causality of being a day one, getting pre-ordering a first gen version of hardware like this. But yeah, I would say wholeheartedly, I endorse this product without single doubt. I think it is made for a specific type of person, and you know who you are. And if you're listening and you're like, I'm on the fence, don't be anymore. I promise you will love this. This thing fucking rules and has absolutely changed the way that like I play video games now.
Hell yeah. I love to hear it. And I will say, as a final button, if you've never done remote play with your PlayStation 5 before, you can test it on your phone. So I would recommend doing that before you buy it, just in case your internet's not strong enough and you have a bad time on your phone. Just, before you drop $200, if remote, like if your internet's just not good enough, then that's going to be a problem. But hell yeah, I cannot wait to get one. Probably going to wait a little bit, which is, against my character on this show. I fucking trigger buy everything. And I regret it later, but this time I was a good boy. I'm sure Rose is very proud of me. Cayman, thank you.
Yes.
I have been playing Alan Wake 2. And it is a game I've been so excited to play this game. It was one of my most anticipated games of the year. And if you follow us on socials, if you follow us on Instagram, I was like, I'm going to be giving my extensive thoughts, maybe a review, because I wasn't sure if I was going to finish it in time. About an hour before we started recording, I got the platinum trophy on Alan Wake 2, so I did finish it. And it was that perfect experience of finish the story, hit credits, trophy for beating Alan Wake 2, platinum trophy. The best
I
possible
love
experience
it,
you can get for
man.
platinum trophy.
So good.
So I'm going to give my full review of both the game and the platinum trophy. And I'm going to stay mostly spoiler free. And you might hear most and be like, oh, what? All I'm going to be getting into is just like overarching themes and like certain connections to certain things. I'm not going to be like going deep in the story. And I'll be talking about some of the gameplay elements, which maybe you'd view as a spoiler, but I don't think you're going to be upset. If you have not played Alan Wake 2 and this is a game you were looking forward to, you have to play Alan Wake 2. I am so impressed with Alan Wake 2. So if you haven't played the first game, if you're like, you've heard of it, but you don't know like what the premise is, the first game came out in 2010, originally just on the Xbox, maybe the PC as well. But you play as Alan Wake, who is essentially like a Stephen King type writer, set in like a Pacific Northwestern town, generalized America. And he's like having some writer's block. He goes on this vacation to this like coast city with his wife to hopefully like get through this writer's block. And it ends up being like a Twin Peaksy type story. He like is finding these manuscript pages that's like foreseeing the future, and like things that he reads start coming true. And it's like this weird kind of mind fuck. Ended up becoming like a cult classic game. At the time was very like, wow, this is a cool game, cool concept. Writing was okay, but it was one of those things where like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we got an Alan Wake 2 one day? And then fast forward, 10 years later, we get Control, which we've talked about a lot on the show. We talked about it 2 weeks ago in the top 100, but ended up revealing in that game, which I guess is a light spoiler, but at this point, I think most people know, same universe as Alan Wake. And so, confirmed that Alan Wake 2 was coming. So we cut to today. Alan Wake 2 is out. And I'm so impressed that this game happened. Like I kind of can't believe that we got Alan Wake 2 and that they fucking nailed it. To me, this game very much is they waited until they had a story to tell. And I'm so glad they did, because the story they tell, I was completely blown away by. I think comparing it to the original game, virtually in every way, shape, and form is like 3 steps above what the original game is from a narrative standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint. Like the combat in this game. So from a kind of a general structural standpoint, they build this game as survival horror. One of my only issues with this game is that this isn't a survival horror game. I don't like, there are very few beats that feel survival horror, but it's not a survival horror game. It's more of, at times it almost feels more like a walking sim / like detective game, and at times a horror, like straight horror. Honestly, this game in a lot of ways reminds me of Silent Hill 2, which we're going to get to later, which is like honestly one of the highest pieces of praise I can give this game.
That's awesome. That's so fucking cool.
And friend of the show who's in the chat, Megan Tron, wrote in, I'd asked for people's, if you've been playing it, your thoughts, or if you have questions. And she had said, let's see, I'm trying, where is it here? Oh, here we go. I'm convinced this release is one of the biggest reasons Silent Hill 2 was delayed. I absolutely agree, because this game so much feels like a spiritual successor of Silent Hill 2. But the way the game works, it at first presents itself as you were just this new character, Saga Anderson. She's an FBI agent, comes to Bright Falls, which is where the first game took place, because there have been these murders that have been happening, or dead bodies have been coming up. And then it ends up being that it's connected to Alan Wake, who has been missing since the first game. So you play most of the game as Saga, but then you also play part of the game as Alan Wake. And very different gameplay feel between Saga's game and Alan Wake's game, which I thought was a really cool touch. The Saga side of the game is very like true detective, a lot more realism based, but not to say that it's only realism, but like it really kind of leans more on the realistic side of storytelling. And then Alan Wake, kind of what I mentioned a little bit earlier, there's like weird kind of mind fucky stuff. He's like stuck in this like nightmare world. So his side of the game is very like, they introduce mechanics in this game that I've never seen in a video game before that I thought were like geniusly done. Like there's one of the main mechanics because on the saga side of the story, you have this like detective board that you're like piecing the story together with. You'll find these clues and you'll put those clues together. You'll come to, you'll make deductions, and that'll like unlock things that you can do within saga story.
Mm-hmm.
On Alan Wake's side, you like fuck with the world in ways where you'll be in this area, and because Alan Wake is a writer, and in the first game these like manuscript pages that things are coming into real life, it's things that he has written in the first game. And so there's this mechanic where as the writer you can like rewrite parts of the story, and you can like choose when you do it. It's like a puzzle mechanic in a way where like
Whoa.
it'll change your environments. It'll change, like, I don't want to go too in depth because it is a really cool thing to discover as you go through the game, but incredibly fresh feeling game mechanic. And then there's this other really cool thing, because in the first game, what made it unique then from a combat perspective was you had a flashlight and you had a gun, and the enemies you could only do damage to if you like flash your flashlight on them first and like get rid of this like darkness shield. They kind of take that to the next level in this game where light also can change the environment. And so there are these like puzzles throughout Alan Wake's world where if you can find a light source and bring a light source to an area, it'll completely change the way the area looks, items that are in the area, things you can interact with. And it's like this really cool, in a way, it gives you so much agency to your story, because on the saga side, sometimes it kind of feels like you don't have very much agency because you're finding these clues, and the board, this what they call the mind place, where saga, think of that Always Sunny meme where like it had Charlie's like looking at the board, there's
Yeah.
like lines everywhere. That's kind of like a mechanic of the game where you're piecing all of these clues together, but it's very much like everything has a singular place to go. There is no, like, you can't really get anything wrong unless you just missed something. And
Mm-hmm.
so it sometimes feels like you're just checking boxes of like, oh, I found this thing. Now I need to find where it goes on this board of the like 95 different things it can go to. And sometimes it's just like, oh, doesn't go there. Doesn't go there. Doesn't go there. Man, this kind of sucks. I don't know where to put this. And so you just keep clicking around, and eventually it's like, oh man, why didn't I think of this sooner? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay. Like I hope that if we get another game in this franchise that they kind of clean that up,
Sure.
because that was one of my only kind of gripes with it, was sometimes on the saga side, it felt very much like, this is the story we're telling you, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But to counter that, the story they tell is really fucking good. Like I'm really, really impressed with the way that this game turned out. And I think for me, it is a top 2 game for me right now. Like I just finished it an hour and a half ago, so I don't want to necessarily say I think it's better than Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, because as I've mentioned in the last several episodes, I've not finished Baldur's Gate, which I think is a kind of a front runner for a lot of people.
Do
So I
you
can't but yeah, I've been rambling, so I want to let you jump in with any questions or thoughts you have so far.
do you think Alan Wake could potentially pull the It Takes Two upset? Like, do you think it brings enough new mechanics to the table where it could potentially upset something like Baldur's Gate?
I really think it can. And I think if nothing else, this game, without a shadow of a doubt, will win best direction, because the amount of intricacies this game has from a gameplay perspective, from a story perspective, and the fact that all of it weaves together in a way that
Mhm.
at least I found satisfying by the end. And it's such a deep, deep game from a lore and a narrative perspective,
Mhm.
that I think this is doing something that some games have touched a little bit, because something that I've not mentioned at all, and Greg, friend of the show, from our audience, says, in terms of his thoughts, something that stood out to him was, he says it's the best blend of different mediums in a game that I've seen in a long while. This game, similar to Control in a very kind of small way, has a lot of live action film to it.
Yeah.
There's entire chunks of this game that is just film, and it is like the way that they weave that in, and it works.
Mhm.
And there's one sequence in this game that some people, have been talking about online. I think, Cayman, you're kind of aware of this sequence. I don't want to necessarily say what it is, because I heard what it was before I did it, and it took away the how it landed ever so slightly, but there is a sequence in this game that is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in a video game. And it was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced in a video
That's
game.
so cool.
And as it was happening, I was like, I genuinely don't understand how they could have made this work. Like there's just so many moving parts to it. Think if you've played Control, that sequence in Control that we always talk about, think about that like turned up to like 100. Just like the things that are happening that while this is, it's like a marvel to experience and look at. Just really cool. Like there are things like that happen throughout this game where we think of Tears of the Kingdom and how it, took everything the Breath of the Wild did, took it to a different level, kind of reinvented it in a lot of ways, to where a lot of people in the game development community were like, I don't know how they did this. We think of Baldur's Gate 3 that we've talked about, where a lot of people in the same, similar to Tears of the Kingdom, we have game developers being like, I can't believe, you mentioned this a couple weeks ago, I can't believe that people are going to now expect all RPGs to do this, because it hit such a level at what it's trying to do that it's kind of set a bar. I think Alan Wake sets a bar for single player narrative driven third person action games where like it reminds me of like back in the day when like The Last of Us came out. It reminds me of like when Uncharted started coming out, where from that kind of story driven, narrative driven game, where we were like, man, they're doing something that very few, if any, developers are doing. This game for me cements Remedy as being on like that extra tier, that S tier, like the Naughty Dog tier of like, I can't believe that they keep making such great video games. And the fact that it's all tied into the same universe too, it's just like, I'm such a nerd for that kind of shit that I do think there is a small chance that this game could upset and win Game of the Year.
I honestly,
I really don't think it'll happen, but I think it could.
That is going to be my getting back from Thanksgiving. Hopefully at that point, I'll be done with Dragon's Quest, DQ11 as we call it.
Yeah.
So I have two questions, Patrick.
Yes.
First, and these are going to be interesting. First question. Obviously, you've already mentioned this is connected to the Remedy universe and is heavily Control, and obviously we know that Control plays into this.
Yes.
Can you just, and you can be as vague as you want, Max Payne? Do you feel like Max Payne could potentially be part of this universe? They've said before that the original Max Payne games are not part of the Remedy universe. However, they've also said they're going to be remaking the first two Max Payne games.
Right.
Do you think that this is going to be in there, or do you think that that's just going to be their own shit?
I don't think so. You and I had discussed, in a text message, like I joked that because Sam Lake, the creative lead of the studio, the face of the original Max Payne, is as a face of a main character in this game, and they do what they did in Max Payne, where they have a different voice actor voicing him. And so I was like, maybe Sam Lake is the connective tissue between Alan Wake and Max Payne, which I think still would be amazing, because that's also something that I will just say, if you know Sam Lake and you have watched interviews with him, or you just are aware of who he is, there is just such a funny thing about him being in this game that by the end of it, there are things that this man does in this game that I'm like, I can't believe that you're the boss of this studio and you're doing this in a video game. It's just really cool. But I don't think it's going to be connected. And while it would be funny if it is, I kind of hope it's not too, because I feel like there is a bit of a magic between Alan Wake and Control being connected with, the Federal Bureau of Control and things that you'll discover as you play the game. But I just don't see how Max Payne would fit and it be, what's the word I'm looking for? It feeling good, or it being worth it. Sure. I could be wrong. They're so much smarter than me at Remedy. The things that they pull off in this game and narratively, what they've been cooking on for 13 years, they know what they're doing. So if it is, I'm sure that they will wow me, but my gut tells me I don't think it will be, and I don't think it should either.
My thing was I thought that Max Payne's signature trench coat was an
Sure,
altered item, and
that'd be
that's how he
cool.
could slow time was because he was wearing this trench coat.
I mean, it could be.
Not all of the OxyContin he was fucking snorting.
It could be.
Second question, and
Yes.
I know that this is, and you're gonna have to be incredibly vague about this
Yes,
because I
I
know
will.
this is probably gonna be a huge spoiler, and we don't want that. Can you just say, I don't know how, figure out a way to tell me
Okay.
how much connection is there between Alan Wake 2 and Control? Obviously, we know the DLC and Control, Alan Wake was in the DLC. We know that the universe is connected. But like, is this a game where if you were to play this, do you like, and you've never played Control? Like, is this a game
That's a
that you
great way to say it.
would you be like, yes, you can totally play this, you'll be fine? Or is it like, there's way more connections here? You definitely need to play Control outside of the fact that Control is a fucking amazing game.
Weirdly, both.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is if you haven't played Control and you don't play Control before you play Alan Wake 2, and like maybe all you do is watch a recap of Alan Wake 1. Maybe you don't even do that. Maybe you just go in completely blind. You're not going to get as much out of this game, but they do a good enough job of explaining and introducing like what makes these universes connected that you can just take it at face value. But having played Control and Platinum Control and played it twice and done all the DLC, if you're a fan of Control, you are going to have a great time playing Alan Wake 2. I'll leave it at that with that. But we do have a couple, or at least one more question from the chat. Megantron, how would you rate the fear factor of Alan Wake 2? Where does it fall on the spooky spectrum? I would. It's a great question. At times, this game made me go, which is the like Patrick's way of like that really scared me, but it took everything within me not to scream. And then there were also times that I was like, I'm very unhappy with what just happened. And it never got me to like full on scream, but there are multiple moments throughout this game and sequences throughout this game that I played with that like my heart rate was getting up and like I was like I kind of really don't like how this is going right now, but I'm gonna keep playing it because I want to see what happens next. But I wouldn't say it's like capital H horror, but it definitely there's a lot of good jump scares, and there are kind of story moments and story content that is both like spooky dark and also like dark. Like I will say maybe look up some trigger warnings for Alan Wake 2 in terms of some of the story content, specifically with like death. There's nothing like sexually related or anything like with death specifically. I would say there might be some death trigger warnings in this game. So I would look that up before you dive in. But yeah, so roundabout way of saying I would say it is more spooky than it's not, but I don't walk away from it being like that is the spookiest game I've ever played. But it like I'm very glad at how spooky it was. It definitely checked that box for me, and it's a game that, even though it's a bit long, it took me about 30 hours to beat. I will consider replaying this around spooky season in the future, or at least playing through parts of it. It's a pretty bulky game. That
30 hours. Wow.
Yeah, that I would say one of my few criticisms of the game. I talked a little bit about that kind of dichotomy between Saga's gameplay and Alan Wake's gameplay, and sometimes I felt like I wish there was more weird shit in Saga's side of the game, especially because you play more of the game as Saga. Toward the end of the game, I felt like the pacing I started to kind of feel in a way, maybe let's get to the end. And that's honestly one of the reasons why if I didn't have that complaint, I would be more willing to say this has like I'm really torn between this and Zelda as my game of the year. Not to say that it still can't be, but like it's one of those things where there wasn't a lot of issue I had with Zelda, whereas I have a couple issues with this game. And then the other issue, which is something that might not bother you at all, there are some missable trophies in this game, which I didn't miss because I did get the platinum as I previously mentioned. But like if you're a person that wants to get the platinum in one playthrough, just know that there are missable trophies, because there are certain things where you would have to replay maybe 20 hours of the story to get certain trophies, and like that wouldn't be a good experience if you don't
So
get it on your first playthrough.
no chapter select, I'm assuming.
Not yet, at least. They have said that a new game plus is coming, and maybe with that comes chapter select. But there are some things that are specifically tied to the narrative and certain like sequences that won't happen again, that you could miss, which is, unfortunate. And kind of mentioned like, so in that missable trophy sense, there are also some things in Saga's story with the mind place, with the investigation board specifically, where it's like, I'm trying to check this box, I'm trying to close this part of the case, but I've missed a clue and I have no idea where it is. And I wish that there was like in the in-game stage, you could unlock a thing that's like, here's where all the clues are in the world. Like there's nothing like that in the game, which I think would have been a really nice touch. And maybe that comes in the future, but
sure.
Ultimately, this game fucking rules. Strong 5 out of 5 for me. This will absolutely make it in my top 5, probably top 3, when we have our end of the year game of the year show discussion. But I'm so thrilled that they did it, and like it didn't, for me, it didn't disappoint. And I see Jordan in the chat. Is it a beefy game? This is a beefy game for sure. There's a lot to this game.
We love a good beefy game.
Love a good beefy game. And John in the chat, I made it. Can you start from the beginning? Number 100, go. I realized I didn't change the go live message. So this said we were doing top 100 again, but we're not. We're talking Alan Wake. We're talking PlayStation Portal, and we're about to get into some news. Unless Cayman, any final questions from you?
That's it for me, boss.
Hell yeah. Go play this game. It fucking rules. Okay. Let's talk about some news. Let's talk about The Last of Us, Cayman. It's a topic that we talk about often on this show. But this week, or actually this was technically last week, The Last of Us Part 2 was in the news, Cayman. And it was in the news because it's being remastered for the PlayStation 5. I'm pulling from, I actually forgot to write it down. I think this is The Verge that I'm pulling from. I forget. Apologies to whoever wrote this. But they write, Naughty Dog officially announced The Last of Us Part 2 remastered for PS5 on Friday evening, following a bunch of leaks about the game earlier in the day. The game will be released on January 19th, 2024, just like the leaks said. The biggest new addition seems to be a, quote, roguelike survival mode called No Return that's, quote, designed to let players prove their mettle in randomized encounters and experience The Last of Us Part 2's combat in a fresh experience. Naughty Dog's Jonathan Dornbush said in the announcement blog post. You'll be able to play as some new characters and work through, quote, various stealth and combat encounters that will pit you against a range of enemies with unique twists that can add new, unexpected factors to any given encounter, end quote. As for technical improvements, Dornbush says the game offers native 4K output in fidelity mode, 1440p upscaled to 4K when in performance mode, and if you're using a TV that supports VRR, there's an option to unlock frame rate. You can also expect improved loading times and DualSense features like haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. In addition to the new roguelike mode, there's also a new guitar free play mode with unlockable instruments, the ability to experience some incomplete levels that were cut from the original game in what they're calling the lost levels, which includes a developer commentary for those cut levels and main campaign cutscenes, and a speedrun mode. If you already own the game on PS4, you can upgrade to the digital version of Remastered for $10. And you can bring your saves from the original to Remastered. And then the rest, blah, 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 details leaked. We already know that. We covered it. So the short of it is The Last of Us Part 2, a game released 3 years ago, is now being remastered and put on the PlayStation 5 with a few bells and whistles. Cayman, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so someone who actually never platinumed The Last of Us Part 2, this actually excites me to be able to be like, oh, I have like a very good reason now to go back, play it again, and get that that elusive platinum. And as we say here, science. So if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. But yeah, no, I think it's exciting. There is definitely a moment where I think we all have this like laugh of like, oh, they're remastering The Last of Us again. This is like what, the fourth time. Let's see. There's the 1, 2, 3, third time a Last of Us game has been remastered. There was the PlayStation 4 remaster of Last of Us Part 1. Then there was the whole remake of The Last of Us Part 1.
Yeah, I guess
And then
we could say they've remastered it twice now, but they've
it's
remade
just
it once.
I think it's one of those things where yeah, people I don't know. You're going to have people who are going to be like, what the fuck, Sony? Stop remastering the same fucking game. $10 though, to upgrade from 1 to 2, I think is a really good move on their part. I think that wins a little goodwill. If they were to come out and be like, no, you have to pay for this again, I think there would be an absolute fucking uproar. So I think Sony might be learning a bit of a lesson here. At least I hope so.
Yeah, when I saw this story was happening, they tweeted on Friday like, "Hey, we're announcing The Last of Us Remastered in like 13 minutes." We're like, okay, that's a weird way to do this. And I was afraid that they were going to be like, and it's $70.
Yeah.
Honestly, the $10 price tag lets me have so much grace for this remaster, not collection, this remaster re-release. Because, I'm someone, we all know I love this game. And I've said it enough on the show. If you didn't know I love this game, I don't think you've ever heard one of our shows before. And I was like, I don't think I could justify spending $70 on this game from 3 years ago, that when you look at side-by-side screenshots, you can't really tell the difference, because the PS4, I mean, it was a really good piece of hardware. And like, we're not at a place yet with the PS5 where like, if something was completely, unlocking the power of the PS4 at the end of its life cycle, looks a lot like a PS5 game, 1-to-1.
100%. Yeah.
And so, but all of that to say, this roguelike mode, I think, sounds awesome. Like, I love the gameplay in 2, and I can't wait to potentially just lose hours in this mode, playing as Lev, playing as Abby, playing as Dina, like all these other characters from the game is really cool. But what I'm most excited about, it's not the guitar free play mode.
Are you sure about that?
Touch that.
Because I feel like this is the closest we'll get to Rock Band Part 2. Part 2.
Yeah, this is the only way we could ever get Troy Baker in a Rock Band. But these lost levels, like, I can't wait to see what that is. Like, they've been very clear, like, they're not complete levels, but it seems like it's going to be kind of like a walking around a museum type thing with the commentary and also, lost cutscenes. Like, they've been clear, like, it's not completed, like, it's going to look incomplete, but I am a sucker for this kind of stuff. And then also there being a developer commentary for 2, which I don't think there was already, but maybe there was, and I'm misremembering. Really excited for all that. Like, I love any of that kind of behind the scenes stuff, because we're getting a lot of it these days with the HBO show. Like, people want more Last of Us content in that way, in terms of like making of. So I think overall this is and the fact that it's coming out in just a couple months, like, I think this is a win. I think it's, if you never played the game, now you got an easy excuse to, especially leading into season 2 coming out probably in 2 years. But yeah, so overall, I'm happy. I'm not disappointed where I thought I was going to be. Yeah. And then a little, tag team story to this came in. It seems HBO's The Last of Us maybe has found their Abby. This I am pulling from Paul Tassi at Forbes. Now that both the writers and actors strikes are over, everything can get back to production, and that includes The Last of Us Season 2, which will start up in January 2024 before a release much further down the road. The central question around Season 2 has always been who will play Abby, the season's co-lead, given the events of the second game, opposite Bella Ramsey. Now, a new report from Jeff Snyder, Routine Industry Insider, says an actress is, quote, poised to win the role of Abby. That would be a Caitlin Dever, or maybe Dever, I don't know exactly how you say it, a development I would find sort of wild, given that, this is Paul Tassi, that of all available actresses, she seemed like the most dead ringer for game Ellie, and she even did a table read for the role. Snyder says she attracted fresh attention after her recent alien horror film, No One Will Save You. So what is the argument?
Good fucking movie.
I can't wait to watch it now.
Really
I didn't know it existed. So what's the argument for Dever's casting outside of this report? She has a similar complexion to Abby. She's one of the few dozen people co-showrunner Craig Mazin follows on Instagram. Interesting little nugget there. She'd already be familiar to those working on the show if she's already read an audition for Ellie. She's 26 but looks younger, and Abby is supposed to be in her early 20s. And while she does not have Abby's size, she and everyone, he says, is bigger than Bella Ramsey, who is tiny, which is funny. But
that's the one thing that throws like she's got 2 years to become like Miss Universe.
Well, not really. If they start filming in January 2024.
Never mind.
She's got 2 months.
2 months to get fucking jacked, bro.
And maybe she already is. Jordan in the chat, she crushed it in Booksmart. Opposite vibe of Tilo, of course, but still agree. She's great in Booksmart. If you haven't seen it, it's like a coming of age comedy.
Was Booksmart the Olivia Wilde, or was that 8th grade?
Both, I think, but Booksmart is definitely Olivia Wilde. Her and Beanie Feldstein. It's like a high school comedy.
What a name!
Really good.
What a name,
yeah.
Beanie.
And yeah, I think she's a great actress. I am interested to see like what they do physicality wise, because I do feel like a really kind of paramount like feature of Abby's character is that
she's big.
She bulks the fuck up for reasons that you will learn if you haven't played the game in season 2. And so it'd be weird for that not to be the case. But ultimately I'm not upset about this. I think she's a great actress. So I'm excited to see if this is true. I'm excited to see what she does with Abby. Any thoughts from you, Caitlin, on this?
No, yeah, I just I'm curious to see what the physique looks like. That's going to be the big thing for me. But yeah, I think she looks like Abby, which is I think the cool weirder part.
Yeah.
But
so let us know what you think about both The Last of Us Part 2 being remastered and Abby potentially being Caitlin Dever. Or Dever, however you say it. Let me know how you say her name too in the comments if you know how. Or I could just fucking look it up. I could do my research. Fuck.
You could.
I could, or I could just go play Alan Wake 2 again. Okay. Closing out the show, Cayman. This is something that I wanted to discuss.
Good.
I've been thinking about games of our childhood. We just went through the top 100. And we talked about, some of the games that we'll probably talk about today, or we talked about then. We'll probably talk about some of them today. But you remember how big licensed video games were when we were kids?
Dude, love them.
Fucking love them. And it's something that I thought about this last week when you reviewed RoboCop. That I was like, not that we don't get them. We just had Spider-Man 2 on the PS5 come out. RoboCop, like they happen. But I feel like when we were kids, licensed game meant something very different than it means today. Like usually it was either like a movie tie-in or a show tie-in, or it was like one of the only ways that a comic book came to life, because there weren't a lot of comic book movies when we were kids. And so there was a lot of kind of like magic and mystique to licensed games as kids, because like, oh wow, I can play as Batman in a video game, or I can play Indiana Jones the game. So I wanted to talk about some of our favorite ones from our childhood, from the audience's childhood, and just let's just give a little love to the licensed games of our childhood. Cam, what do you say?
Yeah, I do. I'm so excited about this.
So I think the way that we should start this is just start talking about them. What's one from your childhood that really sticks out to you that you remember fondly?
So funnily enough, Sid and I actually watched this last night. A YouTuber we like, Hollow. He did a first hour or two of Peter Jackson's King Kong, the movie, the official video game.
Yes.
And what a hell of a title. Here's the thing. I looked this up. Come to find out, the devs behind it was Ubisoft who developed the game. And it was the devs who made Rayman made this game.
Yo, really?
Yes. And let me tell you, there's no way that this game should be good. And it was fucking amazing.
I remember really liking this game. I think I rented it from Hollywood Video.
Yeah, it was so fucking good. And they even had Jack Black. Jack Black reprised his role and voiced his own character in the game. It's just like I feel like the really fond memories of like playing that on the PlayStation 2, just like back in the day. It was like 2005, I think, when it came out. Just love that game.
I also remember that was a launch title on the 360, and
Mm.
so I remember we got the 360 at launch, I believe, and I remember like seeing trailers for the game like on the OG Xbox PS2 version, and then also seeing how much better it looked on the 360. I was like, I want to wait and get it on and play it on the 360 to see what this new thing is all about. And I remember renting it and being like, this is what a video game can look like. And it was fucking King Kong. But
Yeah.
because it was a first person shooter, right?
Yeah, it was an
Yeah.
FPS. It was so weird. Just like you like went through Skull Island and you like killed like giant insects and giant and reptiles and shit. Just like a weird game that like honestly don't know why. Well, outside the fact that like those days were rife for games like this. I
Yeah.
distinctly remember. I don't know if you remember this one, but do you remember the 7 Up game on the Super Nintendo?
I don't remember the
Yeah, man,
7
it
Up
was a
game.
it was a platformer, side-scrolling platformer where you
What?
were the 7 Up, like it was like I don't even know what it was, like the red circle. It was like the 7 Up mascot.
That's hilarious. I did not know that game existed.
Yeah, man, I don't even remember the name of it, but I remember it was on the Super Nintendo, and I remember renting it from, I wanna say Blockbuster as a young child. 'Cause of course, why wouldn't you? Then
Yeah.
I think you have other awesome, incredible licensed games as well, like, that aren't even just, like, nostalgic hits, but, like, genuinely good games, like Simpsons Hit and Run.
Sure.
Was like Simpsons Hit and Run, GTA clone. Just no reason a game like that should be good because the concept and idea of a licensed game is specifically to capitalize on interest of a certain IP at a very
Yeah.
certain period of time, and they came out incredibly fast. Typically, it was by devs that were not great,
Yep. To say the
and
least.
they would churn them out. They'd be like, "Hey, we got the new." I mean, shit. I think the last time I distinctly remember a situation like this was when Captain America: The First Avenger came out, and it was like, there's 18 different versions of this one particular game, all made by different devs, all made in like 6 months. They were all, as you can imagine, fucking
Yeah.
dog shit.
John, he wrote in a few, but is also in the chat right now. The Lion King on Game Gear, I learned to control my rage. I remember playing The Lion King on the Sega Genesis.
Dude, brutally difficult.
Brutally difficult. I remember getting so upset that I couldn't beat the game because I was like, I just, I'm jumping around as Simba. I'm in the jungle. I'm just platforming around. And I'm like, I just want to see, like, I know how the movie ends, but I want to see how the game ends. But I can't because this game is so hard.
So funny. Yeah,
Uh,
brutally different. Here's one for you. This one is very obscure. Probably no one knows about this. But this is actually a really big one in the speedrunning community. A lot of times this will show up on the awful games done quick block during GDQ or AGDQ. And it's called Darkened Sky. It is a dark fantasy game. Patrick,
oh,
what do you think it's licensed off of?
Darkened Sky.
Darkened Sky came out in the year 2000. It was a
Um,
PC game.
what was that movie with Jude Law and maybe Angelina Jolie? They were like World War I pilots.
Oh, Iron
Do you know what I'm talking
Sky?
about?
Is it Iron Sky?
Maybe that movie is my guess.
Yeah, you're absolutely wrong. It's the candy Skittles.
Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. I'm sorry, candied Skittles?
The candy Skittles.
Oh, just the candy Skittles.
Just the candy Skittles. The
I need.
Skittles. This was the game is based on.
Wait. What's it called again?
Darkened Sky.
Oh, with an
The,
E, Darkened Sky. Okay, I'm doing a little screen share situation.
and people speed run this game because it's so fucking terrible, and it is like a just an absolute gag. Darkened Sky. It is all about Skittles.
Wow, how the fuck is this game about Skittles?
That's a great question.
When I Google it, the first like auto suggests in the images section is just Skittles.
Yeah, it's Skittles. Something
Wow.
about it is Skittles. Um,
I am so shocked by this information, and I think, Kanan, we might need an official Darkened Sky review next year when we're done with all this Game of the Year bullshit.
I feel like we'd have to try to figure out. We'd have to emulate it. I have a feeling, so it might have to be you
Oh, sure,
because
yeah.
you could do it on the Steam Deck.
Wow.
It got a 7 out of 10 on IGN. There's no fucking way. Oh my god!
Let's see the verdict. But this was
good.
Ivan Sulich gave it a good out of 10.
A good out of 10.
The comments section the comment section is new to IGN PC. I'm not really. Wait, what? But I digress. Darkened Sky is a solid but never markedly above average outing in the genre. Titles now a year or two old can easily offer up better graphics, better sound, and better gameplay. However, Darkened Sky's charm, personality, and lovable nature are irresistible, especially when seen alongside so many other ostentatious titles of sickeningly profound seriousness. He must have been being paid by the word. Irresistible for sure, but not exalting enough to overcome substandard play mechanics. And I'm sorry, Ivan, you're not describing a 7 out of 10 here.
No,
you're describing
you're
a
not.
5 out of 10.
Fucking Yakuza Like a Dragon was like a 7. How is this a 7?
I'd have liked it. I'd have liked to like it more, but Skittles in the day and Skittles in the night without any real sustenance is enough fuel to only drive a brief novelty.
What a sentence! What a sentence, bro!
Wow.
I never, in the history of mankind, no one would ever.
What happened to them?
Would ever do that.
Mike, what happened to Boston Animation? He's not here. I'm speaking through time. Wow. I'm so shocked right now.
Wow.
Another write-in, The Hunchback of Notre Dame Topsy-Turvy Games. This is from John in the chat. Never heard of this game, but what it reminds me of, let me make this a little bigger. What it reminds me of, I played this Beauty and the Beast game as a kid. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong tab. Hold on. Share this tab instead. But I can't really tell what this game is based on the images, but it kind of gave me that same vibe. I'm wondering, like, John, was this like a point and click maybe? But it looks, the art style is cool. Yeah. But I don't remember this game, but it looks pretty cool. Go ahead.
Do you remember the Burger King games?
Yes, Sneak King.
What was the other ones? There
was a motorcycle one. Oh, here we go.
A kart racer.
Pocket bike racer. So you were on like those tiny little motorcycles that like kids have, and then Big Bumpin'. It was like a bumper cars game, I guess. But I played the shit out of Sneak King.
That's what you're getting for Christmas this year. Is you're gonna get all of the Sneak Kings. It's
what
only
if I told you
you already have?
What if I told you I already own Sneak King, but I don't own. I remember having them, but I don't have them anymore. Big Bumpin' and Pocket.
I feel like you kind of have to have all of them.
I kind of do though. So I won't say no to a Big Bumpin' and a Pocket bike racer.
It's funny. I keep a list, right? I keep a list of every single series of films that I have, like in my collection, that I need to finish. And I feel like this is the same instance where it's like you need the Burger King IP games.
Yes, I do. Also, another one, John wrote in Aragon, the video game, but he said, it was a joke. He couldn't keep a straight face. But I was like, oh no, John, I played this game.
Oh, I did too.
I liked this game.
Yes,
I thought this game was awesome.
Yeah.
I don't really remember like what kind of a game it was. I think it was maybe like a third-person action-y type, like brawler.
Yeah. It was, yeah. It was like a hack and slash.
There's like dragons and shit.
Yeah.
I was all about this movie or this game because we fucking Jeremy Irons. Hold on. Is John Malkovich in Aragon?
I'm pretty sure that's John Malkovich. Yeah.
Wow. I don't remember that. I think.
Could you imagine Aragon? I think someone should make a Being John Malkovich, the video game.
Can you imagine?
You believe me, brother? I can't imagine.
John says the combat was terrible, though. It probably was, but I was too young and dumb to realize it. There were dragons, and that's all that mattered to me. One for me, we've talked about it on the show, but Lord of the Rings, Pepsi Man, the Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers, and the Return of the King, the side-scrolling action brawlers that you would play, couch co-op. Why is the graphics were absolute dog shit, but being able to play as any of the characters in the Fellowship, man, they really just don't have a lot of screenshots of this game.
Wow.
I'm shocked by this, but yeah, what a great game. Oh, because I'm just searching Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers. I didn't put game. That's why. Yeah, this game ruled. Like looking back at it, it's so brown and it's so green.
It was there was like the heyday of that color scheme though.
Like that's all that they could do. But I remember my brothers and I played, and I feel like I've talked about this on the show before. We played this game so much, and you could do all three of us. So one of us would be Aragorn, one would be Legolas, one would be Gimli, and we just fucking play the socks off of this video game. Definitely a very high on my list that I remember personally. But what's another one from you, Cayman?
Oh, brother. Here's a good one. The Fantastic Four, the movie video game. I don't know if you ever played this.
Let's see.
It was
This
like
one, the old
yeah.
original game?
So it was you would play it and it was like a fuck. What was it like? It was like Ultimate Alliance.
I was about to say, was it like Ultimate Alliance? Because it looks
it was like kind of the isometric, almost half top down. You would level up and you would use like superpowers between each other. And it was great, man. It co-op. It was just like, I think this is the one thing that we're missing the most right now is we don't have like any co-op games. Like
not a lot of them. That's for sure.
We'd like no more couch co-op. Like we need more games like this. And like I remember my cousin and we used to play this so fucking much.
I'm remembering I played the Silver Surfer version, so the sequel. I don't think I played the original.
That was that I see. I don't know if I ever played the Silver Surfer one. This was a big one. Another one that was absolutely terrible. I know you have a copy of right now somewhere. Shaq Fu.
Oh yeah, I do. I could, and actually no, not Shafu, Shaq Fu. I think it's in my storage unit actually. This game I played so much Shaq Fu. Shaq Fu was like a Mortal Kombat-esque game.
So bad.
So bad.
So bad.
Such a bad video game, but I thought it was so cool. Yeah, here's the original box art. 1994. What a game. And then they did a modern recreation of it like 2 years ago. They got like
also
a 2 out of 10.
So bad. Here's the thing. I think there's another great example of like how these can actually go really well. And it's rare, but like Spider-Man 2, the movie, the game, is still considered like as one of the greatest Spider-Man games ever made.
Yeah, it's a great video game.
It is. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's a licensed IP based off a movie video game.
Mm-hmm. I remember that was one of those first times as a kid, that moment of like, I wonder what it would feel like swinging as Spider-Man, and then you play it and it feels great. I'm like, yo. This is why video games fucking rule. John in the chat, does Def Jam Fight for New York count as a licensed game? I think absolutely it does. I think like for sure. I think it bringing in all the different rappers from Def Jam Records. We got fucking Snoop, we got Fat Joe, we got Method Man, Redman, Sticky Fingers. Like this game, yeah. John and I, we've talked about this game before. That game fucking rules. Big fan of Def Jam 5 for New York. I played that game so much. Another one for me.
50 Cent Blood in the Sand.
Bad Blood in the Sand. I stole a copy of that video game from it wasn't Hollywood Video. It was called, started with an M. It was like Movie Palace or something. I forget what it was called, but it was a game that I rented and then it went out of business. So I was like, oh well, I'm keeping this.
So you did steal it.
I mean, I guess not.
Circumstance.
For street cred, I'm going to say I stole it. One that I think of often is The Matrix Path of Neo, which wasn't it wasn't specifically a movie tie-in as much as it was just like extended universe type stuff, because there was also Enter the Matrix, which you played as Jada Pinkett Smith's character, and I forget the guy. I forget what his character's name was. But you could pick one of the two. It was more of like a shooter, like a third person action shooter. But I remember really liking that one because it had like its own, like that. You got a lot of like lore about these characters that you didn't get in the movies in the video game. There was one of those first times where I was like, whoa, I'm getting more from playing this game. I'm getting more from this movie from playing this video game, which I thought was like one of the first times I experienced that, which was really cool. But the Path of Neo, I thought was the first time, or at least that I remember, this was the first time where like you could do like the fucking slow motion shit and you could like fly around as Neo. I was like, man, I've always wanted to be Neo from the Matrix in a video game, and this game fucking did it.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. Just some ones right off the top of the noggin. DuckTales was fucking
Yes.
classic.
Yep.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World, I think, was
Great game.
another fucking fantastic one.
Mhm.
Here's one. Here's one just off the dome. The Chronicles of Riddick:
Yes.
Escape from Butcher Bay. That game, once again, no fucking reason whatsoever that game should be good. But
I
that
feel like the
game,
people that made Time
ruled.
Splitters made this, maybe.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. It was fantastic. Also, are we supposed to be getting a Time Splitters 3? Did they announce that like 7 years ago and it never came out?
It died this week, actually. All of those Embracer layoffs that we didn't talk about in the show, that was one of the games that died.
No, you're fucking kidding me. The
I'm not
irony
kidding.
of the statement.
Yeah, it's dead. It's
Oh,
one of,
fuck.
I think, 15 games that got hatcheted, that Embracer was working on, including KOTOR remake. They didn't necessarily confirm it, but it's pretty much confirmed that game's dead, which is a bummer.
I have a feeling that the KOTOR will end up popping back up by someone else, though.
It might. It might.
Disney's not going to let that die. There's too much money to be made there.
I hope so, because I would love a modern game of that. Honestly, have the people that made Baldur's Gate 3 do it. Have Larian Studios do a KOTOR remake.
Oh, Mad Max.
Ooh, Mad Max is a great call. PS4 era, really good car combat.
Yeah, just like a little hidden gem. Like feel like it was just kind of left out in the ether there. Bummer.
I agree. Someone earlier in the chat said GoldenEye on N64. More so for me, James Bond Nightfire, which was the PS2, Xbox, GameCube era James Bond game, or one of a few of them. But we played so much James Bond Nightfire in my house. Really like that game. Also, last one I'll give a shout out to. It's a game that we've definitely talked about on the show before. X-Men Origins Wolverine. Fucking great game.
Uncaged edition only.
Uncaged edition only.
Yeah, you don't want to play the Wii version. There was a Wii, I don't know if you know this. There was a Wii version.
I didn't know that.
That was rated T for teen.
Disgusting.
Think about that. The whole sell of the game was to get just fucking destroyed.
The whole sell of the game was to see Wolverine's adamantium skeleton.
Yeah.
Briefly, and then it come up as in your skin grows back because you're fucking Wolverine.
I got one more I'm gonna throw out there. That is SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom.
Yes, you just reminded me. There were a couple more audience submissions that I didn't cover. That was one of them. Evan Brando said,
"Yeah,
Battle for Bikini Bottom, great video game." He also said, which I think I agree with, other than the last like 15 minutes of episode 3, the 2000s were better for Star Wars video games than they were for movies. Because we got a lot of Star Wars bangers on the video game side. That is true.
The episode 3 game was amazing.
Great game. Also Republic Commando, both KOTORs. Battlefront 1 and 2. Like we got a lot of great Star Wars video games for sure.
I concur.
And then actually, you briefly mentioned Marvel Alliance, also the original X-Men Legends games.
Oh man, can we
really good?
Like, can we just someone out there just like I don't know,
bring it back?
Bring it back.
We brought it back, baby. What did we miss, guys? You're listening, you're watching, you're driving your car, you're working on your little sewing project. You're knitting a little sweater for grandma. Write in, let us know. mail@spotlightgames.net.
I'm fucking waiting for the text message from Boston Mike where he's like, brother, you forgot about the licensed video game all about the life and death of Tom Brady.
Great video game. But I actually did forget, Boston Mike did say the Hulk game from the Eric Bana movie was pretty sweet.
The Indestructible Hulk.
I actually don't think I played it.
Wait, no, I don't think that might have been a different one. The Indestructible Hulk was great though.
Yeah, I don't think I played either.
It's the team that made that went on to make the prototype games, which were also awesome. They just apparently they sold well, but just not well enough. Apparently,
just not well enough. No. Okay. Also, closing out the show, Babylon Drifter in the chat. Haven't seen you in a while. Hello, TIE Fighter, Star Wars TIE Fighter. Great call out. Great call out. That should have been mentioned in the 2000s were better for Star Wars video games than they were for movies. Conversation. But yeah, what did we miss? I'm sure we missed a ton of video games. But Cayman, that's our show. A tight, some say this is probably the shortest show we've ever had. That's not true. But yeah, let us know what we missed. Guilty Remnant Smoker, Escape from Butcher Bay. It makes me think of the Bay Harbor Butcher. Is there a Dexter game? I think there might be a Dexter video game. I want to say it was maybe on mobile. Let's find out together.
100% has to be a
Dexter
mobile game.
video game. Dexter the game, developed by Icarus Studios. Oh wow. Ooh, that looks rough. It was a PC game. Released September 2012. It looks like maybe it's like a visual novel, perhaps, but it was released on PC, iPad, and iPhone.
Ooh.
But had a lot of the cast in it from the show. But man, it looks rough.
Michael C. Hall took some time away from his music career to voice
of
a
an angel.
video game.
When I get my PC, which is happening soon, I'm going to be streaming Dexter the show, the game by Showtime.
I'm gonna have to make trips down from the mountains to come in and start streaming off of your computer. The Dumpster Boys Dumpster Dives.
Yes. Also, Babylon Drifter says denigrating mobile games is sexist. I disagree. I disagree. And since I'm not going to see you for Thanksgiving, we're going to take this up either before or at Christmas, young man, because I'm not going to let you try to ruin my character in the chat on twitch.tv/SpotlightGames.
Wait, we didn't even talk about the licensed Fast and the Furious games, and that's a show, baby.
That's because they're fucking terrible. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. You can follow me at Patrick Schwag. You can follow the pod at Spot Games Pod on Twitter, or Spotlight Games Pod everywhere else, including YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, all the places. I still have a lot of reels that I need to post for the top 100. I only ever posted a couple, but it's at some point you're going to be like, they're talking about the top 100 again. It's because I'm a lazy, naughty little boy. But Cayman, where can they follow you? Where can they follow Save Trash Cinema, which should be returning relatively soon, I think.
We always say it.
Maybe.
You can follow me at the Dumpster Boy on Twitter. STC, so you can follow at Save Trash Cinema on all socials. Like we always say, STC's come back soon. We actually have plans for some stuff coming up in a bit. And I'm actually working right now on seeing if we can get a couple more interviews booked out. So should have some interesting stuff coming down the pipeline soon enough. And look forward to that. We have a huge back catalog. If you haven't, you can go back and listen to some disgusting filth of episodes. That's just
filthy.
What we're known for.
Filthy. Hope to see you next week. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv/SpotlightGamesPod. Until then, have a happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate. I hope that you just hashtag free the moth. I don't know what that means. Maybe I just said something I shouldn't have said, but that's what John said in the chat. And I'm trusting in you, John. Don't fuck me. Don't fuck me, John.
Don't fuck him.